and this faith journey has produced is peace and joy. And so, God, we enter your gates today with thanksgiving. We are thanking you that we are growing up in faith. We are thanking you that we are becoming and beholding and becoming change for the time we have spent in your presence. Hello. How are you doing today? It is so good to see you. It is so good to be with you. It is so good to be here again. If you don't know who I am, I'll give you a brief introduction. My name, as it says at the bottom right here, is Lenore Reynolds Jones. I am the founder of a beautiful company called Legacy Builders, where we equip families, specifically couples and some individuals, with necessary tools and skills to leave a lasting legacy. What does legacy have to do with this show? I believe that legacy is a God pursuit. When we read the Bible, it tells us about Abraham, and Abraham's promise from God was pretty much a promise of legacy, where God told him, I will make you a great nation. And greatness and wealth, those are parts of a legacy. But he also told them things like, through you, all the nations of the earth would be blessed. So that talks about relational legacy in terms of relations between other people and lots of other things. And so I absolutely believe that legacy is a God pursuit. Now, as we follow Abraham's lineage, we get to the children of Israel, which are the descendants of Abraham. And then something really hard inserted itself into their story. They went into slavery, and then God sent them to deliver Moses. And when they left Egypt, what did God send on the transitional journey? Manna. And that was the journey to fulfill the promise that he had made to Abraham. And so I believe, and God showed me, that manna is literally food or provision for a specific season. And so every day, well, not every day yet, I'm not even going to joke God like that. I won't. But right now, on Wednesdays and Fridays, I am here at noon to ensure that I share with you some provision for your transition, some provision for the season that many of us generally find ourselves in at the same time. And so that is me. That is Midday Manna. And without very much other instruction, other than this one thing that I really, really want you to do, and you should know what that thing is. If you don't watch nothing on social media. But if you just want me to tell you because you're like me and you want a specific invitation, like I legit don't go anywhere if you don't ask me. Don't tell nobody to tell me to come to your potluck. Like, you tell me yourself. And so if you're like me and you need specific instructions and specific invitations, this is your invitation to please like, share, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're on all other social media, please hit the like button. YouTube also has a like button, but definitely like, share, and subscribe this broadcast for someone who you know is in transition. Like, that's all you need to know, or someone who you know just needs a word from God, and it's the middle of the day and you saw them struggling and God gave you a little nudge and you don't know what to do, you don't have the words to say, just like, hey, I saw this and it was really great for me. I want to know what you think. Like, that's it. But share this broadcast with someone who you think will be blessed. So today's topic is, the words that stuck out to me are grasshoppers or bread. And you're like, girl, what? Those don't even go together. Because I know they say that you can eat grasshoppers, but it's a no for your girl. I don't care what they said about John the Baptist and his locusts and all of that stuff. And I live in the state of Maryland. And so we had them 17-year cicadas and everybody was like, you can eat them. And I'm like, y'all better get out of my face with that mess, because I'm not eating no cicadas. And so I know that technically they're both edible. But that's not the purpose or the point of this broadcast, or even the provision that I have for you today. So if you follow me on social media, I did a live yesterday, and that thing was powerful. for me. If for nobody else, it was powerful for me to have that experience and that revelation from God. And so I will give you a brief recap just from last week's broadcast on Wednesday, from yesterday, Tuesday's very short live, and then that'll put us in a place where we can pick up for today. So last week, we were on the live, and if you've been tracking with me, we've been using sports analogies, and we got to the place where it was like, if there is a set of people who understands like 2-minute pressure, and 2 minute in terms of, if you've ever played sports or watched sports, you know that the last 2 minutes of the game are like intense. They can, like, you can, be trailing all first half, even all but the fourth quarter. You got to bring your A game in the last 2 minutes. Like, it doesn't even matter if you're up, you have to maintain your lead, and if you're down, you have to take the lead. But with them last 2 minutes, if the other team has all them timeouts, if you're tired, like, it just feels eternal. And so you are just stuck in between, knowing that the end is near because you can see the clock, but all the opponents are still on the court and you are exhausted, and these 2 minutes feel like they're taking forever. And God just brought to my memory that, like, if there's a set of people who's like that, the children of Israel were like that. Like, they had already come out of Egypt. God had already delivered them from the plagues. Like, they done seen, water turn to blood. Firstborn, they were saved by the blood over the doorpost. They get out, they traverse, like, they get to the Red Sea, and the Red Sea is there because, like we talked about last week, the Red Sea, God brought them there, I believe, because it was the fastest way to get to their destination, which was the Promised Land. The scholars say that once they crossed the Red Sea, it was 11 days to the Promised Land, right? And so there were other routes, but this was the fastest one. And so they come out, and then not only do they come out and they meet this deep, unknown body of water, and unknown in terms of, I don't think they knew that the Red Sea was, 30 kilometers deep. However, like, it was just this big, because bodies of water in scripture are synonymous with depth, with transition, with things like that. And so they meet this big, deep, unknown, and it's in front of them, and it is impairing their progress to where they want to be. So this thing is stopping you from where you want to be. But what's worse about that is, on the other side is everything that you want. Now, if those two things weren't enough to be stressful at where you sit, here comes Pharaoh's army at your back. And so many of us feel like we've already come out of Egypt. We've come out of bondage. We have seen God do some things in our generation. We are beginning to see, and like, even if not in the physical, at least in the spiritual, we are able to see and sense that, yeah, things are changing, man. It's not what it used to be. I don't feel the way I used to be. Even if the scale don't reflect your victories, you just feel skinny when you wake up in the morning. So it's really, really good, and you can sense that. But then here comes this next set of foolishness that's like trying to drag you all the way back to what you came from, all the things you freed yourself, and you are like, God, like, this thing, this body of water is in front of me, like, I don't even know what to do now. And so in last week's broadcast, we went through all of that, and the instruction to the children of Israel, when they had their moment of woe is me, and oh my God, how you brought me here to leave me, and all this other stuff, when they had that moment, God's response was go forward. And we were like, wait, what? And the go forward was predicated on this understanding that what God revealed to Moses was that the Egyptians you see now, you will never see again. And that's that beauty that, God clearly let them know, like, it's not just that the promised land is ahead of you. It is that what is behind you will never be seen again. So God doesn't even take you places without giving you promises and giving you understanding of what's at stake. So we got through all of that last week. And if you're like me, you're like, okay, go forward. And how do you know which way is forward? Forward is the thing that's going to give you the quickest, because again, I said this, it's the way that's going to get you to where the promised land, whatever your promised land is, quickly. So like For us, forward was moving out of this place because we believe our promised land is a home. So we have to move out of that place. We have to apply again, even if we've got 57 no's or whatever. Like, forward is going because we understand renting is not going to build generational wealth. It's just the truth. Well, so we need to get to a place of ownership. And so forward is not really figuring out, but what's in front of us, these deep unknowns, all these mortgage companies, all these changes. We're going to try again. We're going to go in there. So we move forward. Guys, I promise you, we move forward. It's looking great. We're all excited. God said, go forward because, like that place that we lived, we ain't going to never see it again. These rent, like all of that. And we're excited and we go forward. And wouldn't you know, like then, I think it was Monday, we got some information. And literally the information we got was enough to like push me all the way back. And not back to the Red Sea, but just like discourage me. And so I randomly, because if you know me, and I feel like we're friends now, you know that your girl I don't watch TV at all. But I also don't like, if I'm scrolling social media, I scroll on mute. All videos must always be muted because I don't want to be assaulted by any sounds. I'm very sensitive to what I see and hear. So I'm always on mute, and I don't generally watch anything because I don't want to, it's there and I can't take it back. So I don't watch many things. I don't care who it is. And I don't follow a bunch of like ratchet people or anything like that. So it's trustworthy things. It should be great content, and I'm still not like watching it. Like, I can't. So, but randomly yesterday, I watched this video and some of you probably, some of you know her. If you don't, check her out, Marshawn Evans Daniels, and she is the author of Believe Bigger, and she was talking about like in the shift. And so she starts and talked about like, just know that the shift is hard. Like, just tell the truth. Like, so many of us want to make it seem like the things of God are always going to be easy or comfortable. And the reality is that God promised you neither. He did not promise you it was going to be easy. He did not promise you that it was going to be comfortable. What he promised was that he would never leave you and that he would carry you when you couldn't carry yourself. I.e., his strength is perfect in your weakness. And so, and you don't get weak if you ain't exerting yourself. Let's be clear. So she's talking about like the shift is hard. It's hard, but my paraphrase of the part that was just so beautiful to me was she said, we have to believe God more than we believe the enemy. And I was like, ooh. You mean I got this news and you're telling me I have to believe God more than I believe the enemy? So yes, the news is there, but I have to believe that the God who brought me now through this Red Sea and who has given me progress, and so the instruction was, and we are in yesterday's live at this point, and I'm catching you up. In yesterday's live, I told you about how I had the conversation with my girlfriend, and it was God said, call her and talk about belief. As we were talking to her, led to, at this point, I had to look it up. It's Numbers 13 and 14. And in Numbers 13 and 14, what do we find? We find the children of Israel again. And at this point, they're outside the promised land, or at least on the other side of the Red Sea. So they've crossed the Red Sea. They've done some journeying because we are now again in Numbers. So in Exodus, they've moved. They've had they did the whole golden calf situation that happened. God done told them how to build a tabernacle. Like, they have had experiences with God over these however long. You hear me? And they come now to the promised land, and Moses sends one representative from each of the 12 tribes and is like, go spy out the land. And this is where we're going to pick up today. So he tells them, go spy out the land. And you know this story, like all 12 go, all of them follow the same route because Moses told them, go up through the south, do this, do that, do that. It took them 40 days, guys, to spy out the land. They come back now to the camp where everybody is. And Moses is like, what's the report? Caleb is like, let's go possess the land. The other 10 dudes was like, what? Caleb is drunk. Caleb is crazy. Y'all don't listen. He's smoking the good. Don't listen to nothing Caleb said. Because like the land, and here is what their reason was. The land is good. They didn't dispute that the land wasn't good, but the people are giants and we are as grasshoppers in their eyes. That's what they said. And so first point I wanted to make was how that thing, as I just sat with that idea yesterday, the idea that they saw God, they saw themselves as grasshoppers in the eyes, it told me two things. One, not only they have short memories, because again, this ain't but probably 11, or like if they're outside the promised land, it's been 2 weeks since God parted the Red Sea. Let's say, they had to go slow, and even though it's 11 days journey, it took them 14 days. But it's probably less than 30 days since God parted the Red Sea, and you walked on dry land through something that was deep, and you watched that thing close, and you know that God kept his promise that you will never see these Egyptians again. And somehow, and God done came down, and he gave his tablets, and all of this has happened, and somehow all of this, or maybe none of that has happened, right? Because I'm not certain on the timeline, but what I know is the Red Sea was not far. It had been probably 2 weeks, less than 30 days. They are now here, and they quickly forget the power of their God when they see the size of the enemy. So that's number one. The other thing was they don't actually trust in who their God said he is. Because what kind of loving God? Like, think about it. They didn't say like the giants were big and oh my goodness. They were like, no, we are as grasshoppers in their eyes. Our God don't even care about us, because after he brought us to the Red Sea, he's going to put us in a situation where something is going to smash me like a bug. And so this is where you sit right now. You've probably, if you've been trekking with me and your experience is anything like mine, this news came and you felt smashed like a bug. Because it pulled all the rug out from under you, or all the carpet as we call it. It was like you're just like, man, and you're questioning not just the power of your God, but the nature of your God. That's what happens. And so they go and they kirk out grasshoppers. And we get to, and this is Numbers chapter 13 again. And you keep reading, and they then, after these guys say that, these 10 guys, they pretty much convince the entire camp up to stand on their side. And so here I want to talk about the thing God is asking you to do. The majority of the people around you will never understand. And I'm going to say something, I read it in a book somewhere, and that thing has stayed with me. There are things that I read or that I hear that stay with me because I knew that this is a point that is going to change my trajectory forever. Like, one of those things is this idea that I tell you that God parents from a position of the answer is yes, unless it's had to be no. So that means God is permissive. So every time you go to God, like, God, can I do this? He's like, yes. Can I do that? Yes. Can I do that? Yes, 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 yes to all of that. The problem is, like, we actually were never taught to relate to our God. So we end up like these people where we question the nature of our God. We question the nature of our God because we don't actually know who he is, and we don't understand that he's permissive. So we go and we got this dude, and they got the news, and all the people, everybody around them is like, nah, that's crazy. And so I want you to know the journey to the promised land may be a lonely one, because at the end of the day, For the 12 people that went and saw, only two, Joshua, Caleb, two believed. So what the statement I want to give you that was after that whole permissive thing about God and his parenting style, let me say this in your hearing. Validation is for parking tickets, folks. You heard me? Validation is for parking tickets. Whatever vision God has given you, whatever promise he has made to you, whatever tugging you feel in your spirit, you don't need validation from nobody. You are not a car. You are not operated by someone else. Nobody is paying you to accomplish this thing. There's no ticket that gives you permission to do it. Again, God said the answer is yes, unless it had to be no. So parking's free. Validation is for parking tickets. So stop taking your ideas and your pearls and casting them to swine in hopes of validation. God never validates you. God told you, like, God accepted you. Think about that. And these all come back to how you know and how you relate to God. Because before you came to God, God had already accepted you. The Bible says that while we were yet sinning, Christ died for us. Like, he accepted you. So you out here struggling for acceptance and validation from people who, when you've been accepted way back, and you're doing things that going to take you out of the running for the promises of God in search of validation. You don't need no validation. God said, go forward, go. So these guys now, the majority of the people are like, and what's the other thing that struck me is these people who are discouraging you, I need you to understand that they are preying on your fears. They aren't even saying anything new. Like when you read literally the same set of words that they said at the Red Sea is the same set of words that they said outside the Promised Land. Literally and it's going to be the same set of words that you go through the story. Literally, we've read you've heard the stories, so you know that when they got to the rock and they were thirsty, oh, maybe has God brought us out of Egypt to leave us? He brought us into the desert to kill us. After all of this, you still don't know God. After all of this, you still ain't got no trust for him? Like nothing? The thing he did that last week, that just don't count at all. Like they ain't saying nothing new. They saying the same foolishness to you over and over and over again. And you respond the same way over and over again. And in here, I'm going to insert the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and asking for and expecting a different result. So you go into these people looking for validation. They ain't giving it to you. They obviously don't know God the way you know him, but somehow you hoping they going to encourage you now and they've never. You hoping they going to believe in you now and they've never. You are hoping for support now and they've never. And they tell you the same foolishness, it's either, the way my pocket is set up, my bank account is set up, the way my network, like what? No. The answer is no. They don't have no new news to give you. They don't have no fresh revelation. They ain't got no new water, no new manna, no new nothing. No. Just stop now. Let the majority go over there. If you are Joshua, find your Caleb. If you are Caleb, find your Joshua. Because to be clear, and I said this, and I don't know if I said it yesterday, he came out of Egypt with you. So God already gave you the relationship that you needed for your success. They were in Egypt together. The Bible doesn't tell us whether or not Joshua and Caleb were friends before, but we know that it was random selection when 12 spies came. So they met at the start of this 40-day let's go thing. They may have known each other before, but who knows? They may not even have had like any real conversation. But what they had was this belief in God and this relationship with God that was different to everyone else's. So when you're looking for your relationships and you're looking through your relationships, I want you to look not based on where they came from. Were we in Egypt together? But do you know God the way I know God? Do you believe him the way I believe him? And understand that the relationship is already there. God has already made the introduction. For me to get this revelation, God literally gave me a vision. It's almost a year and a half ago now, to a person I didn't know. I didn't know the lady, but God gave me a vision, and I had to, in obedience, reach out and like, God told me to tell you this tip, like for real. Like I literally had to do that. And I didn't know the person, and they were receptive to it. To this day, this person is the person that, and then this person is the person when I was, after I watched that video, was like, God called them and talk about belief. That was my Joshua. God introduced me to my Joshua in a very uncomfortable, or my Caleb, whichever one, whoever you want to be. But God introduced us a year and a half ago, and we didn't know each other. So the relationships you need, God has already provided. Anyway, so we go through all of this story, guys. We go through all of this. These people kirk out, they say the same foolishness that they've said all the time and the same foolishness that they will continue to say. And I need you to understand that their growth and stagnation do not mix. Like when you think about moving of walk, even when you think about water that is standing still is filled with death. Stagnant water, it doesn't breed good things. Moving water, even lakes have movement that facilitate growth. So you hear, and you met them people 20 years ago, and yes, their finances may have changed. The amount of people in their family may have changed, but they telling you the same. And I'm going to say it the way I feel it. They telling you the same trifling Bible verses out of context, trying to keep you where you are, and it's not building your relationship with God. They rubbing the same doctrine down your throat over and over. They're giving you the same foolish non-explanations. They have no actual real life experience with any of the things they're telling you or promising you, but you still going back there talking to them. The answer is no, folks. Anyway, so Joshua and Caleb come, they there. Caleb says, let's go take the land. The people listen to these dudes about the whole grasshopper situation. They go in on their tangent. At this point, we are transitioning now from Numbers chapter 13 to Numbers chapter 14. And I have an internet connection. What you talking about? Okay, well, hold on one second for me here. Of course, my phone decides that this is the moment that it's going to act up, but the girl knows exactly where she needs to be. I even highlighted it. And so, what? We are not doing this. So, these guys say all this stuff, and after Caleb, and I'm, before I tell you what Joshua said, I need you to understand that Caleb said what he said, and I don't know if he said anything else because the Bible doesn't record it. So I think what struck me here is the power of his silence. Some of you telling too many people too many things. I have, in this season, I have had to learn how to shut up. Everybody don't need to know what you know because you aren't convincing them of anything. There's a difference between sharing your testimony and trying to convince people to follow a vision that's not for them. Caleb, he came and he was like, look, let's go possess the land. These dudes respond to him and he goes silent. When he sees where they're at, he ain't arguing with them. Why are you arguing with them? Why are you arguing with them? Did God give you the vision or did he give them? Like, God, listen, he don't have nothing else to say to them. They saying the same tired foolishness. You ain't convinced them of nothing. As we go through the scripture, it says they called it, and then the people started whining and lamenting about let's go back to Egypt. They're saying old dry argument or whatever. And this is what Joshua comes now to partner with Caleb. And this is what Joshua says. He's like, the land which we passed through to search it is an exceedingly good land. That's what he said. So after they came with, we should have died in Egypt. Oh, God brought us here to be smudged. He's like, look, the land that God brought us to is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into the land and give it to us. For the land flows with milk and honey. So Joshua understood that there was nothing he could do to make this happen. And that's why Caleb and Joshua got along, because they were like, look, I see what they said, and I know we're not qualified here, but I know who God is, and God is more than capable because God parted this Red Sea. God has done some things for you, and you have experience and perspective that is different to the other people. And so the land is good. Let's go. And so, but then Joshua says this. Do not rebel against God, neither fear the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their defense has departed them. The Lord is with us. Fear them not. And this is where we get the second part of our topic, where they are bread. Because I want you to hear me say this. The opposition that is in front of you, the giants that you see in the land, that is your provision. You need to put it in its rightful place and its proper perspective. God had promised them that they would have vineyards they did not plant. God had promised them land flowing with milk and honey. Those things require cultivation. Somebody had to do the work. What God is saying is that somebody wasn't you. Do not confuse the provision that God has provided you with the enemy or your adversary. Because at the end of the day, that's what happened. These guys saw the giants and saw an enemy too big for their God. Joshua and Caleb saw the same giants and was like, look how God made people big enough to produce grapes big enough for us to have to take two people to carry. Way back a couple of months ago, I told you when we were talking about Jehoshaphat, that the size of the army determined the size of the spoils. We find this thing again, where the giants were that big because of the blessing that the promised land represented for the children. After their 400 years of slavery, God was like, oh no, you ain't gonna, and making bricks without straw. Think about what they came out of and what God was trying to give them. and you out here intimidated by what God has provided for you. I don't know who's on my live. I see Holly, I see Laisha, I see Camilla, but the word of the Lord on today is to put on your big girl, big boy underwear and go possess the land. They are bread. The thing that you see in front of you, it is not to intimidate you. It is for you to consume it. Put it in its rightful place. There should be no fear. Don't open your mouth and speak rebellion against God. Don't confuse God with these foolish people. Don't open your mouth and allow doubt to have you saying things that cancel your blessings. Because, and you want to know what I'm talking about? This choice, legitimately, these guys went and searched the land for 40 days. That's what happened. It says 40 days. They went and they searched the land. They chose to not believe that God could do this. These fools walked in circles for 40 years. Nobody who agreed with the majority actually entered the promised land. So let me put this in perspective. Last week it was the Egyptians that you see, you will never see again. This week is, if you don't possess the land now, you won't possess it in your lifetime. It's going to be up to your children. Because when Joshua crossed the Jordan River in Joshua chapter 1, him and Caleb, it was the children of all the naysayers who crossed with him. So we out here talking about we generational curse breakers, and we gonna do it for our people and our family. What you are experiencing right now will determine if you are a generational curse breaker. It will determine, do you deal with it, or is it gonna still be there and it's gonna come back for your kids? Because here's the thing, the promised land never moved. They did. The promise ain't moving. What God has said for you is not changing. It's on your lineage. It's on your family. It is for you. The only thing that changed was their minds and their perception of God. And that led them to walking in circles. So I'm going to give you 2 shameless plugs and get out of here. If you have never bought my book, Knowing God as El Shaddai, I encourage you to buy it now. In there, I have an entry. It is day number 10. It is called Circles versus Cycles. It clearly teaches you how to identify where you are and in which one you find yourself. Because God will cause you to circle a thing. Because in the repetition, you will find, strength and God is building you. But God understands that the beauty of a circle is that the distance from the circumference is the same anywhere you are on the cycle. So when they came out in them 11 days, in them 40 years, they could at any point still been the shortest distance to the promised land. Cycles, you're walking aimlessly without anything. I encourage you, watch your words, watch who you talk about. So that was shameless plug number 1. Buy the book. Shameless plug number 2 is get you a coach. Get you a Joshua or a Caleb. If you do not have, and let's be clear, and I'm going to say this, and I don't even care how y'all receive it. Like, if you don't have a Joshua or a Caleb in your family, in your circle, find one and pay for one. There are no excuses. Make no excuses. Find a life coach. Make sure they're a Christian. Make sure they have a genuine relationship with God. Get an elder in your church. Follow somebody on social media. Do something. Watch, sitting around with your family and accepting the same foolishness over and over again, but knowing that God has called you to change what it means to have your last name. Everything is at stake. And I know some of you didn't want to hear that, but that's where we're going to end. What is at stake is your legacy. And so my name is Lenore Reynolds Jones. I am the founder of a beautiful company called Legacy Builders that will give you the tools and skills necessary to leave a lasting legacy. Yes, I am a certified life coach. Yes, I have a deep and abiding relationship with God. If this broadcast isn't enough to tell you that, then I don't know what else it is. And it's okay if you don't pick me. But I want you to know clearly that I am not cheap and I am not free. So if you would love to work with me, I would love to work with you. You can go on my website and you can schedule a 15-minute, and actually today I'm going to put it on my calendar, and I will put 15-minute consult for us to just have a conversation about like what your expectations are and what you are looking for. But hear me, your legacy is at stakes, folks. This was not how I planned to end it, but this is what God is telling me I need to say, because there are some of you that you know you're in this moment. You've been here for a while. You are transitioning. You've come very close several times, and you know you need to do something different. Because again, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Welcome to different, folks. Have an absolutely blessed day. I will be, and look, even if you just follow me, because I'm going to be here again every Wednesday and Friday sharing what God is telling me. Yes, I have clothes on, everybody. I do. It's hot where I am. But just know that, like, do something different. Do something different. So I will be here on Friday taking your prayer requests. I will be back next Wednesday again sharing more manna for your transition. But just know that your legacy is at stake at this point. And if not you, it's going to be your kids. So I pray though that you take the wise counsel that you are receiving today. And I pray even more that your latter, because you took that advice, because you took hold of God, if nothing else, because your perspective has shifted, and because you trust him to be your loving father. That's what he is over everything else. God is your loving father who has the best plans and intentions for you. Take him, and may your latter half of your day, latter half of your month, latter half of your year, may it be greater than the rest. Have a blessed day, and thank you so much for joining me for today's edition of Midday Manna. Be blessed. Bye-bye. What our trust and this faith journey has produced is peace and joy. And so, God, we enter your gates today with thanksgiving. We are thanking you that we are growing up in faith. We are thanking you that we are becoming and beholding and becoming changed for the time we have spent in your presence.